It's amazing when you start meditating every day and you really, really start connecting to yourself, how things you used to do without much consequence, like things that were a little bit out of alignment, that didn't cause much pain and there wasn't too much suffering in them. How when you really begin to connect to yourself, those same things, they just become excruciating and they're so much more painful, and it's because your awareness expands so much when you meditate for long periods of time, that you just become so much more aware of how alignment they actually are. And like previously, before you were meditating, it was kind of like this thing you could get away with, you could kind of get away with just being a little out of alignment of truth, because you didn't have that experience of being completely connected to yourself, completely connected to the divine, and in that flow state that you begin to surrender into when you're meditating. So it's like you don't even know you're that out of alignment until you really start connecting to yourself. Then when you go back and try that same habit, that same codependent pattern, the same addiction, whatever the case may be, it's like the fall is so much more painful. Like Adyashanti uses this metaphor. It's like someone climbing a ladder. It's like we're all climbing the ladder of consciousness. And the higher up we get, the further the fall is when we act out of alignment, when we do something that isn't in our highest truth. It's like our consciousness is expanding, and then we do that thing that's out of alignment, and we actually fall farther, and it hurts more than it would if our consciousness wasn't as high, if we were only on that second or third rung of the ladder, right? So when you start meditating, you really start flying up the ladder of consciousness. So that's beautiful, and I wouldn't have it any other way, and it's an incredible journey. But the other side of that is, when you do get really high up there and you become very aware of what your truth is, and in every moment you can feel whether you're living your truth, speaking your truth, being your truth or not, there becomes like the consequences of falling out of truth, of making the choice to go into an old pattern that isn't in your highest alignment. The consequences of that just become so much more severe and so much more painful, and it's just like it's like you really fall flat and like face first in the mud, and you just like kind of pick yourself up and dust yourself off. And you, like, this last thing I went through a little bit yesterday and today, I was really shocked by how it just wiped me out so thoroughly. And I really had to kind of like dust myself off and like, whoa, wow, I've been doing that pattern my whole life and it's never felt this bad. And for me, it was just like a codependent pattern, a neediness that would arise, or that arose. And usually it's like more of a subtle thing. It's just always there, and I'm always kind of acting it out in some way. But since I've been meditating for 2 hours a day for 9 straight days, it's like now it just became like, whoa, that's a big codependent pattern that's had a hold of me, and I'm able to see it so much more clearly. So when I act it out, like I did yesterday and today, it's just like brings up an unbearable amount of pain, and I felt like completely exhausted and depleted after acting out that pattern. And that's beautiful, because now I have more information like that is truly out of alignment for me, and it helps me to actually release that pattern now, because I can see, because the consequences are so severe, because my awareness is expanding so much, I'm able to really fully release and surrender that pattern. Because the consequences are so high now for me to act on that pattern, it's like you don't really have a choice but to surrender it. Because the pain of acting the pattern out has now become greater than the pain of just surrendering the pattern and feeling maybe the craving for it, that old longing for it, and just staying in my highest truth. And I feel like that's what's happened with this latest codependent pattern of mine. So much of this meditation is showing me, and also living on my own now, 100%, is showing me anything childish within me, anything immature, anything that I'm just so ready to outgrow and surrender, Any ways like this immaturity and this childishness It's showing me how it's creating karma with other people, and how I just don't need to choose that anymore. I don't need to choose to create karma, to live out of alignment, even in subtle, little, seemingly innocent ways. And of course, it's all innocent. We're always doing our best, and we always, even while we're acting out of alignment, even if we can see ourselves in that moment acting out of alignment and not in our highest truth, it's important to bring love and compassion to ourselves in that moment. And that's another thing I did too. I didn't shame myself for acting out an old pattern. I didn't guilt myself for it. I just was very honest with myself. I saw it for what it was. I saw that in the moment I was acting it out, for some reason, that old pattern had such a pull over me, I didn't really have a choice but to go with it, to just kind of be taken victim by it, you could say. I saw that so clearly. But I also saw that a deeper truth is arising within me, a greater consciousness is waking up within me, to where the next time that pattern comes up, I'll be able to just not identify with it and surrender it and let go of it. And the reason I'll be able to do that is because I have more information now about how out of alignment it really is. Before I was meditating this long, I didn't really have all the information about how out of alignment that old pattern was for me. But because of meditation, and because of the pain I felt acting it out, and because of just the fall and the crash and the burn that happened, and just being really disoriented and just, kind of a little bit wow, because of all of that happened, now I have the information that, okay, that's not for me. That is not my truth. That's not something I need to do anymore. And so this can be anything for you guys. It can be in relationship with others, maybe some codependent and needy patterns that you've always acted out. You're now seeing okay, these don't serve me anymore. I've outgrown these patterns. It could be any type of addiction. It could be any type of inauthenticity. It could be in subtle ways you've always abandoned yourself, but you haven't realized it until just now. You're starting to see, oh my God, I'm really abandoning myself in this area, and I've always done that, and it's always been okay, but now my awareness is too big. I'm too tapped into my true self to abandon myself, even in that subtle way, because that subtle way feels like a major way, which it is. And here's the thing, guys. As we start to, I'm getting flooded with goosebumps. This next thing I'm going to say I feel like is really good. As we start to surrender those old patterns, that neediness, that old thing we used to do with abandoning ourselves, it's like our energy field starts to heal. We start to come into more of this state of wholeness. What we're doing is we are reclaiming our power when we let go of that old pattern that's out of alignment. Anytime we move out of alignment, even in a subtle way, we are giving our power away in that moment. We're stepping out of we're literally depleting ourselves. And that's how I felt yesterday and today. I just felt so depleted because I went with that old codependent and needy pattern, and it's it really wreaked havoc on my field. And that's what you guys will notice is as we start to kind of clean up these areas of our life, as the awareness grows and we see, oh, that's out of alignment, that really hurts, it's not serving me, I'm ready to let go of that, I'm ready to step into something more mature, more in alignment with who I really am. Our field, it starts to heal, it starts to release all of these old beliefs. A lot of these beliefs are rooted in lack and negativity, unworthiness, a lot of beliefs in shame. These start to release from our field, and we become much more powerful. And then because we're releasing, it's like these old patterns that we're addicted to, they're not actually what we want. We're chasing something that we don't actually want. And when we surrender that, even though it can be uncomfortable at first, and we might feel oh, if I don't do that thing, I'm going to feel this uncomfort, this emptiness, this incompleteness. If we're willing to go through that, our field heals and it becomes fortified, we become more powerful, and then we draw to ourselves the things that we really want.